Good evening again, everyone. It's Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. It's 6 p.m. and it's a continued regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. And by continued, that means we are starting off exactly where we left off at the last meeting a week ago at about 10:30. And hence our agenda is short. Ms. Kendall, would you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Emilio?
Here.
Councilmember Coletti?
Here.
Councilmember McAdams?
Here.
Councilmember Paduri?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Tomlinson?
Here.
And Mayor Peak? All are present via Zoom webinar, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to Councilmember Smith. Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, Your Honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because this is a continued meeting, we've already approved the agenda. And so we will go immediately to the next item on the agenda from last week, which is item 12B, CARES Act Emergency Rental Assistance Update. And I see Ms. Schaefer is ready. Welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, members of city staff, and members of the public. I'm going to try to share my screen. The item before you this evening is a follow-up to a City Council item back in September when Council allocated $30,000 of the Federal CARES Act funding to be used to assist Pacific Grove tenants at $1,000 per household. A program was developed and that was based on the CARES Act guidelines, as well as examples from other local programs using CARES Act funding. And applications for assistance were available starting November 2nd and ending on November 30th. So we received applications, like I said, between November 2nd and the 30th. We had 11 completed applications submitted, and we had a total of 14 inquiries specifically around the application. And I'd like to offer special thanks to one of my student interns, Christina Cifuentes from CSUMB, who really helped me screen the applicants and communicated with the applicants. Here's a summary of the applications. There were 11 total. As you can see, there were single parent households, there were families, and single adults. Of the tenants who were behind on their rent, the total amount of funding that I would use to bring them up to date, and this is just an estimate, would be about half of what the 30,000 allocation would be. One of the tenants was not going to be able to retain her unit. And so I thought perhaps we could use the funding to offer a security deposit in the first month's rent. And then there were 3 households that weren't behind, but were struggling. And it was going to be hard for them to make, say, the next month's rent. of the applications, there were 2 applicants that were not eligible. One was because the loss of income had nothing to do with the COVID crisis, and that was one of the criteria for the CARES Act funding. And then another family was over income. So in my mind, we can offer this very minimal assistance to pay rent for the eligible households or applicants to bring their rent up to date, offer relocation assistance of security deposit and first month's rent if they can't stay in the unit, and perhaps pay rent forward to applicants who clearly are eligible based on all other criteria, but they've been, depleting their savings. And it would be a big help if they could get a month or 2 forward rent paid. In summary, staff felt that $1,000 per household really wasn't going to help anybody stay in their rental unit. So we recommended that we use the funds to help the qualified tenants with an amount to help them secure their current rental unit as a kind of a homelessness prevention measure. And we're going to continue to provide information and referral to tenants. We feel like this little amount that we're doing is like putting our finger in a dike that's going to break anyway. We're part of a regional effort to try to help tenants. The county, there is CARES Act funding that the county is distributing, and other cities are also distributing CARES Act funding, but none of it is going to be enough for what we're going to see after the first of the year. There are a lot of resources out, and I keep up to date on what's available. And so I encourage anyone to continue to call the city, or I'm going to post all this information on the website. There's legal assistance available to low-income tenants through the Rural Legal Services at 831-757-5221. And then for seniors who are facing problems with their rental, low-income seniors can get help at Legal Services for Seniors at 831-899-0492. There was a moratorium on evictions through the state legislature, the Tenant Relief Act, that went through January 31st, 2021. I heard that the governor extended it through February, but I haven't been able to verify that. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. We'll now go out for public comment.
I currently have no hands raised. Kate Spencer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Oh, I think her hand went down.
Okay, let me repeat this. This is the time for public comment about our CARES Act funding for rental assistance. Just this topic.
I see no hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. Well, then let's go to council. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Schaefer, for this. With regards to the eviction moratorium, is that for both commercial and residential?
I'm actually not sure the answer to that question, ma'am.
Okay, but for sure it is the residential is covered through January 31st?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Thank you for this agenda report, and I fully support getting the funds distributed to keep the residents that qualify, to keep them housed. We are going to see a lot of homelessness, and people really struggling to stay housed. So I appreciated your comment about this being a small step to prevent some homelessness, because that is really what the reality is these folks would likely end up in their car, maybe a hotel, until they depleted, whatever funds they had. So thank you for this. I wish we had more money to provide. 30,000 is such a small amount, and really it's not going to go far. But if it's going to help these handful of residents, then I absolutely support that. And thank you for your creativity and for bringing this forward.
Councilmember Emilio.
Yes, I think it's a great program. Thank you very much. Same as Councilwoman McAdams said. I do have a question though. If people are behind in their rent, and I'm for this also, I want you to know, but if they're behind in their rent, for example, you had a couple of figures there, X amount of dollars, does that go to the landlord, or does that go directly to the rental person?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Emilio, we're going to be paying the landlord directly for the rent. And we've been in communication with the landlords for the tenants, and have been assured that the landlords are willing to accept payment on behalf of the tenants from the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Peduri.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Schaefer, for setting these presentations. I had a couple of feedback items. One is in reading the CARES Act funding, the last date before the funds need to be expended seems to be December 30th and not December 31st. So just awareness that this needs to be done by the 30th. The other thing I noticed from the United Way website is that I believe we're following the United Way benefits model. And if that's the case, the website lists that the benefits need to be capped at $3,000. So again, something for awareness if you're planning to implement this. The final question was around just the leftover funds. I assume everything will be done by December 30th, but if not, is there a provision to actually take the leftover funds and probably disperse it by January 31st? Because that's what the CARES Act reads through January 31st, essentially all rental payments through that time. Thank you.
Through the mayor, I'm not aware of an extension for the allocation that's awarded to the city, and perhaps Ms. Hannah can comment on that. And we're prepared to expedite payments in enough time to be able to make that deadline.
Right. I have not heard of it from a city standpoint of the direction the state has given us. We did say at the last council meeting that if there were additional funds, they would roll back to the city. An option that council may decide is to turn around and switch out some of the funds that qualify for CARES Act funds. Say if there's $10,000 that was not spended, that $10,000 would move back into the general fund. And from a grant purpose, that could go towards other city expenditures because we exceeded the amount of expenditures. So that could give Ms. Schaefer some additional time by making that change. But we do have our accounts payable staff on notice that this is going to be a check run that we do before the end of the year.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, sir. My questions are kind of also on the same vein. I think this is absolutely great. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer, for putting your mind behind it and figuring out the best way to allocate the $30,000, because completely agree. $1,000 is not a meaningful amount for people for their rent in where we live. So thank you. I support it. What you showed on the screen seemed like with the number of applicants that applied and the amount of folks you have qualified, it's about 16,000 or 16.2 or something like that. So does, for the public that's listening and for all of us, does that mean you are kind of frantically looking for more applicants to qualify to allocate the other 14,000 by 30 December?
So
maybe not frantically, but quickly.
So through the mayor, so it could be paid for rent. So rent could mean back rent or it could mean rent forward. So there are enough eligible or qualified applicants who could be helped with rent. So that's why I suggested perhaps I could pay forward rent, or I could pay a security deposit and the first month's rent for one of the applicants who will need to relocate because the landlord will not accept back rent payments.
Okay, I get it now. So the 16,000 is for people who were behind on rent, but if you allocate to the other folks that you were talking about, the other scenarios, then you have accounted for all 30,000. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't verified all of the numbers yet, but I believe I could spend the 30,000 for rent.
Okay, I guess my takeaway was I wanted to know whether you were looking to qualify more people still at this point. But it sounds like no, you've got it in hand. My other question is about the other 30,000 that we allocated for businesses. And I know that's not this topic, but is that also the 30 December deadline?
Yeah.
Ask the city manager if you don't know, but.
I believe so, but someone else can also chime in.
Yes, that is correct. And as of this point, we have received over the amount of applicants. We have to review a few of them. We aren't sure if maybe 3 or 4 do not qualify, but the majority of the funds we have should be expended. If at most we may have just a couple thousand left.
Okay, great. Thanks for that update, Ms. Hannah. That's all my questions, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schaefer. And I support the added flexibility that this recommendation gives you, with the understanding that you just explained that all the funds will be expended for rental assistance. I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Councilmember Smith.
I'll move the recommended action, Your Honor.
Second.
May we have a vote, please?
Mayor Peak,
Yay.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now go on to the next item, which is 13A, selection of a mayor pro tem in accordance with the city charter. Ms. Kendall.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, and members of the public. Article 11 of the Charter of the City of Pacific Grove states as follows: the council shall choose one of its members to serve as mayor pro tempore during the absence of the mayor. Duties include the serving in the role of mayor during the absence of the mayor. Additionally, in the event a vacancy occurs in the office of the mayor, remaining council members shall appoint by 4 affirmative votes one of their number to serve as mayor for the remaining term of the vacated office of mayor. If the council does not fill the vacancy within 30 days, its appointment power lapses and mayor pro tempore assumes the office of mayor. It is suggested a process of open nomination occur. Nominations do not require a second. After nominations are made, Traditionally, a motion, as seconded, is entertained to close nominations. Thereafter, a roll call vote requiring 4 affirmative votes is used to select the mayor pro tempore. This concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
I see no hands raised, Mayor, at this time.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Sandra, would you be able to put up my PowerPoint, please, that's attached to the agenda?
Yes, sir.
And you can, so this is just the title page. You can go right to the second page, please. Well, thank you. Is that a full screen or is that a?
It is full screen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I prepared these slides, and there's just really one because, you know, well, first off, let me state that I got a lot of feedback from the last council meeting, how well everyone was working together, and I thought that I agree with that, and I thought that was very encouraging. And I think it's perhaps a bit ironic and maybe even unfortunate that one of the first things a new council does, at least in my perspective, is to establish an unnecessary hierarchy amongst the 6 council members. So what I wanted to do here in this slide is kind of present what the charter defines as the members of council. There are the first bullet point there from Charter Article 6 clearly shows that the officers of the City of Pacific Grove shall consist of 6 council members and a mayor. It goes on from there to describe other officers. But what the focus of this point is that council members, the 6 council members, there is no position outlined for a mayor pro temporary. And that kind of feeds into the second point. The Charter Article 11 establishes that in the absence of a mayor, the council, the 6 council members, shall appoint a mayor pro temporary to serve as the mayor. But it's not the mayor pro temporary, and this is really the take-home message. The mayor pro temporary was never meant to be a standing position. And that's what I'm kind of pointing out in the third bullet point, is that our charter, basically our city constitution, we are a charter city. Charter 11 does not compel the selection of a mayor pro temporary until such time as the mayor is absent. So I'm bringing this forward kind of as an invitation to my colleagues to kind of carry forward that goodwill that we established at the meeting. And I know we'll continue, but to basically kind of step aside from trying to create this, I call it a kind of a pseudo honorific, this hierarchy within our council member. We are 6 council members and a mayor, and I think we should forego the process of selecting a mayor pro temporary, and I offer that as an opportunity for my colleagues. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Coletti, for bringing this to our attention. You know, I agree with you. I've wanted our council to be more united, and for me, starting off, you know, with competing or asking our colleagues to vote for one of us. It may not be a positive start to our 2 years together. And also, you know, I think that this is a really unique opportunity to not necessarily go with the status quo in the way that it's been on and on and on. So, you know, something that I was thinking about you know, and I've seen in other cities, I did some research, is that they rotate the pro tem on a quarterly basis. And actually some cities even rotate the mayor position. But I do think that a rotation would provide us, all of us, with this opportunity to serve in the capacity, give us a chance to develop a better relationship with the mayor, staff, and ultimately each other. I also think that, you know, a rotation would set the path for future councils to operate in a more cohesive manner. So I agree with you, though. It's, you know, for this to sort of be our first action as a council, you know, we have enough divisiveness in our community and sometimes our council. So thank you for bringing this up, and I'm interested to hear what our colleagues have to say, and I would like to, you know, hear your thoughts on perhaps it being a rotated position. Thank you.
Member Paduri.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Coletti, for bringing this up. I actually had the same kind of thoughts that you had, which is the first meeting of the new council. And here we are already taking sides on who needs to be the next mayor pro tem. I'm also in favor of the fact that it can be a rotational position. That certainly helps everybody build their skill set or whatever is needed to take place, to do the mayorly duties in the absence. So who knows, like in the future, two people could be absent, the mayor and the mayor pro tem, and somebody else needs to do it. We never know. So it's always a good thing for everybody to be, I would say, mindful of what is going on. So I'm in complete support of not selecting a mayor pro tem right now, as well as having that be a rotational position. Thank you.
I'd like to add that there's seems to be some mystery with the mayor pro tem, pro tempore, pro tempore. Starts with, how do you pronounce that last part of the title? And I'll be the first one to admit it's a cool title. But as far as I know, the pay is the same. You get the same number of votes on council, and the duties really only kick in, and perhaps on a very temporary basis, if I'm out of the picture. And I'm hoping not to be out of the picture, by the way. There are no other responsibilities or authority accorded to that title. And so, you know, aside from the designated stand-in in the mayor's absence, it is an honorific, as Councilmember Coletti mentioned. I personally would like it, and it doesn't say that suddenly I should be working with this one other council person. I hope to collaborate with all council members, as I hope council members can reach out on areas of common interest, and recognizing the Brown Act, find another council member that would be interested in collaborating, and I will do likewise. I think that builds a cohesiveness and a better council. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you. And thank you, Councilman Coletti, for bringing that forward. Appreciate that. And I think it's important that we, in regards to the Brown Act, we have to be very careful. But I appreciate that, Mayor Peak, in regards to collaborating with different council people on future items, and maybe revisit this maybe in about a year or 6 months to a year to see how things are going as for a council. That's my thoughts on it.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I've given this quite a bit of thought, and I agree all of what you said, what everyone has said. It's a divisive thing to do in the very beginning of establishing a council and relationships. I think that, you know, when I thought about what I would like to be mayor pro tem, or if someone nominated me, why would that be something I would want? And all I could really come up with is if it makes me better at being a council member. And as you said, Councilmember Coletti, that we all are council members. And so the only thing that I have seen in my past 2 years is that the mayor pro tem was attending more meetings that were with staff and setting processes and being able to just sort of hone his skills as a council member in that mayor pro tem position. And so, you know, in preparing for this discussion tonight, I was going to be more leaning towards rotating this position so that we could all have that opportunity. Now, if those meetings are going to take a bit of a different shape and we fill, maybe they don't happen, maybe they're filled with all of us in a rotational basis, then I don't see much reason for having a mayor pro tem designated, unless and until the time comes when Mayor Peak is sick or has to go out of town or something, which has never happened yet. And then we can decide who wants to run the meeting that week, you know, and choose a mayor pro tem. So I really, the other reason I would have considered, you know, wanting to do it is for the goal of unifying us, not so we all vote the same and that we all see the same way, but that we all work really well together and respectfully together. And if that's a goal of all of ours individually, then you know, and it should be. There's no need for one mayor pro tem to be arcing around trying to make that happen. So I can be fine with not appointing a mayor pro tem. I think that's a great idea.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to, I mean, a lot of what I heard I really thought was great. And I thank Councilmember Coletti for putting that presentation together. I would like to direct a question to legal staff regarding this, if I may, Your Honor.
Absolutely, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to ask if legal staff, the city attorney's office, if our interpretation, if Councilmember Coletti's interpretation, we can move forward in this fashion of not selecting one at this time, and we would be on solid legal ground. That's the first question.
In my opinion, yes, this is solid ground. Let's just, the only time the mayor pro tem has any authority or is in the absence of the mayor. So if there is a city function and the mayor is going to be absent, then if that would most likely be a meeting or a committee meeting, that the group at that time would select a mayor pro tem for that meeting only, and that would always be in order.
Thank you. And my second follow-up question is, in the unfortunate event, I don't think this is going to happen, but in the unfortunate event that Mayor Peak becomes unavailable, what would be the steps that we would undertake as a council without a mayor pro tem to appoint one in timely fashion? And, you know, I don't know, we're in a COVID environment. I don't know. I don't, you know, I'm just kind of wondering what that would look like.
Well, that would be the first order of business at that meeting when the mayor was not present. And that does not have to be placed on the agenda. That's part of the meeting management, just as the approval of the agenda is. So that the very first item, when you have a meeting and the mayor has not shown up, the very first thing that the group will do is to select a mayor pro tem.
Thank you, David. And Your Honor, I'll just address the rest of the group. I think that not selecting one is preferable to a rotation. I think that, as between the two options, it makes more sense that we can just simply, as a group of 6, select someone in the event that that's needed. I don't expect that, but that makes more sense to me. I also think part of the reasoning for that is because I don't think that the mayor pro tem position should be elevated above the other 5 council members, in the sense that they should not have access to meetings that the other council members, don't have regular access to. I guess we've been rotating sort of as council members at these advanced agenda meetings, and I don't know about that practice, but I think that would be a good practice rather than having the mayor pro tem. I guess between the two, having the mayor pro tem at every agenda meeting, that didn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. So I think we should move away from that anyway. So I think because of all of that, I'm more in favor of simply not selecting one tonight as opposed to a rotation.
Let me ask a question or make a statement. I believe if we don't select one, I don't think we need a motion not to select a mayor pro tem tonight. Is that right, Mr. Laredo?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we go that option that Councilmember Smith and others have advocated, and I fully support that as well, then we don't need a motion. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I support everything everybody else has said. I agree with Councilman Smith, but I just wanted to mention to you, Mayor Peak, be there. Always be there.
Councilmember Pedori, thank you.
Yes, in hearing the other comments too, one thing that struck me is with the rotation, probably it might increase the staff time to essentially maintain who's the mayor pro tem, probably on the website, probably on papers. We don't know where else. So it might be a better idea, probably like leave the rotation thing aside and just have it whenever we come to it, we basically select the mayor pro tem. Thanks.
It sounds like we're in agreement. I don't see any hands up. I believe this closes this agenda item. Let's move on to the next agenda item, 13B, Point Pinos Bird Observatory. And, oops, that's my item. In just a moment, let's see. Let me check with Ms. Kendall. Do we have Blake Matheson standing by?
We do. He's raised
Excellent.
his hand and he's ready to talk when you're ready.
All right. So he's got the more interesting, definitely part. I will just talk about the process, less interesting part, but just to preface the presentation for Blake Matheson, who's president of the Monterey Audubon Society. This project was endorsed recently by the Beautification and Natural Resources Committee, and I endorse that as well, and suggesting conceptual approval. And it's just feel the pulse of council on this particular item. That's how I would define conceptual approval. And it's for a lease of city property to the Monterey Audubon Society. This lease would be similar to council's action to lease land to Meals on Wheels of Monterey County. Meals on Wheels of Monterey County, after having agreement with council, and raised funds and built the Sally Griffin Active Living Center, which is now a cherished part of our community. So just to emphasize, the recommendation is for a lease of land, not any city funding. And also, there'll be a few permits or approvals required afterwards. Staff very nicely put together a list for me. If council agrees to move forward on this in a conceptual fashion, it will most likely need a building permit, a coastal development permit, an architectural permit, an environmental review, including biologic survey, U.S. Coast Guard approval, CEQA documentation, and finally, but not least, a lease agreement approved by council. So there's a number of hurdles that need to be overcome, but I think this is a good project, and I'll stop talking and turn it over to Blake Matheson, President of the Monterey Audubon Society.
Can you all hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And do you have some slides that we were going to use?
I do.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much. You can go ahead and go to the first that's great. Thank you. And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. Thank all you new council members for volunteering your time and your service. As a PG native, I'm always in awe of the public service that you guys perform on behalf of the community. So I'm just very briefly going to give you some context in case you don't know. Many of you may not know. Point Pinos is the single best place in Western North America to observe the movement of seabirds from land. And there's really two reasons for that. One is we have this internationally important submarine canyon, which is the deepest canyon close to land on Earth. And in that canyon, we get these fabulously rich upwellings of biologically productive water. And so species from the high seas come to Monterey Bay to sort of reap the abundance of that submarine canyon. And you can stand from shore with a good telescope and see albatrosses and shearwaters, petrels and storm petrels, these species that are really only seen very far from shore, usually coming close to land. The other part of that is we are in a perfect spot to watch the movement of Arctic nesting species like Pacific loon and surf scoter do a nearshore migration as they move south towards Baja, Mexico, and Southern California. So it's really a unique opportunity to look at all different kinds of bird and seabird species. Sorry, go ahead, Sandra. How people have interacted with this resource really began 75 or 80 years ago when sort of modern birding began in earnest and people began realizing that if you learned about birds, all of a sudden you could sort of spend your life learning about and being awe-inspired by the diversity of birds around you. And that really, as I say, started in mid-20th century when Audubon was founded last century, and then really grew into the 60s and 70s. And at the same time, birders realized from all over America, Monterey Bay was the spot for seabirds in North America. And so beginning in about 2015, we all agreed that we needed to be much more systematic about making the most of this resource. And so what we did is we hired people from around the world, the very best bird authorities, bird identification authorities, to come and live in Pacific Grove for 6 weeks, and from sunrise to sundown every day, count every single bird that flew by Point Pinos at peak migration time. can go ahead, Sandra. Thank you. And what we're able to do when we have that kind of systematic effort is we can say, okay, the bulk or a significant portion of the entire global population of Pacific loons and a couple other species like surf scoter pass by in sight of Point Pinos during this count period. And so the total number of birds that we see is a really important indicator of either the abundance of the species or the shifting distribution of the species. You can see here, we were able to record a 90% decline in the number of Pacific loons that flew past Point Pinos if you go from 2016 to 2018. And that's real data. Now that we have 5 years of this consistent systematic data, we will be able to go to somewhere like UC Santa Cruz or Cornell and begin to postulate the best and most likely theories for that decline. Is that because these birds are dying, there's a die-off, or is it because they're adjusting their feeding patterns in response to climate change? Okay, Sandra, go ahead. And the logistics of this are really what brings us before you. These counters and all of the docents and volunteers who are part of this program rely basically completely on the wide parking pullouts at Point Pinos. There's a lot of reasons. You can have a big group of people there. You can have docents from PG Museum, as we've had in recent years, interacting with the public, explaining the seabird resource. Really importantly, we use the vehicles as a windbreak because our most prolific days are when we get a good northwest wind coming off the point and we start seeing more and more offshore species getting pushed close to shore. And so the ability to have all our gear, to have a windbreak, to have aggregations of people has been fundamental to the formal counts, but also just the recreational opportunity for the hundreds of birders that live locally and use Point Pinos, but also the thousands of birders, hundreds of thousands maybe, who visit the Central Coast annually. Okay, thank you, Sandra. So when it became clear that because of the coastal trail, that was no longer going to be possible, we were faced with the reality of, well, we're not going to be able to do the Sea Watch anymore because we won't have this same infrastructure. So we began talking amongst ourselves and began a couple years ago broaching the subject with staff and others about what was the best alternative to solution. And so we selected the land immediately opposite where we currently count, which is owned by the city, which is currently not used by anybody. And that's immediately in front of the wastewater treatment area, the former maintenance yard. And there's a really nice fence plot there immediately in front of the plant on the inland side of the road. And we felt that we could use that site to construct an appropriate observation platform, no electricity or running water, but a platform that would be high enough above the road that we could see over the traffic, that could accommodate the right number of people, that would have no actual environmental impact, and that could be kind of a useful tool, not just for Audubon and other environmental and law enforcement groups perhaps, but also just sort of in general, to elevate the ecotourism profile of Pacific Grove generally. So we came up with this idea of a public-private partnership. We pay for the whole project. We release and indemnify the city. In exchange, we get to have this plot of land to utilize for the observation platform. And as the mayor indicates, there's a lot of work to be done with staff. We're certainly happy to do all that. We realize there's a lot of permissions involved. I will say, just not speaking procedurally, but speaking factually, there really is no environmental impact as a result of the platform. The current site is all invasives and ice plant. And I don't see, if under the local coastal plan, we get a permit for this, I don't see any appeal happening to the Coastal Commission. So it sounds hard, and it won't be easy, but I think that this will be a positive project that is all on the positive side of the ledger. So thank you guys. Happy to answer any questions or talk about it further.
Thank you. We'll now go out to public comment.
Mayor, we have Byron Chin. Mr. Chin, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly like to introduce, I speak on behalf of myself and my wife, Joanna. We are members of the Monterey Audubon Society, and just would like to voice our support for this project. And just so you know, we've also deployed in 2019 a similar project, a project in the city of Seaside to sponsor a floating nesting island in Roberts Lake, similarly funded by Monterey Audubon and entirely run by Monterey Audubon. And I would just like to vouch for just our Monterey Audubon's ability to proceed with these projects and see them through and oversee them. And from a personal point of view, there's a tremendous value to the Sea Watch, and also to having this platform, and also to promoting environmental awareness and outreach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Gibson, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much. I have a question about the use of this, and I know that there are going to be restrictions on it, but would this platform be available for local camera organizations and possibly professional photographers that specialize in Audubon photography?
Mr. Gibson, we don't normally answer questions during public comment, and you're very welcome to, well, everyone's heard your question, and I'd recommend you take that up with Monterey Audubon Society. Mr. Gibson, are you still with us?
Yes, thank you. I was just hoping that if there was interest and it could expand opportunities for some of the local organizations, and I know there is one right here in Pacific Grove, that this would be a great opportunity for the avid photographers and who are also birders, that it's going to be a great asset, not only to Audubon, but to possibly other organizations for use. And this is not on a regular basis. This would be on a one-time or maybe once a year use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Inga Lawrenson, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Inga Lawrenson-Doimer. I think it's an excellent idea. I saw the presentation at the BNRC, and my understanding is that it's going to require keys to get in there because they are fronting, taking care of the liability, the insurance and such. And it's not going to obviously be accessible to just public. It's behind a locked gate, as far as I know. It's a nicely screened project. It's just an excellent idea and a really good adaptation for things that we are adapting for. So I'm all in favor, and I'm sure that cameras and the Audubon Society would be able to work out access. Obviously it's not all the time. So thank you. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
Kate Spencer, you have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I think this is a wonderful idea too. I am a whale watching captain, a whale watching company owner, and environmental tourism is such a big part of the local economy. People come here not just to see the scenery, but people come from all over the world to see our incredible wildlife, both out on boats and from land. So this is just a fantastic project. I was delighted to learn about it. I've already been enjoying participating in the Sea Watch as a sort of a casual passerby and just coming out to see and visit and bird watch with people and help a little bit with the counts sometimes. I've been looking forward to it every winter. So I think it's a fantastic project. A lot of the same customers that come to my boat will also participate in the Sea Watch. We send people over to look at the birds and to learn. People come to go out on boats to see the seabirds, and then we say, yeah, you know, there's a Sea Watch, and vice versa. I have great faith in Monterey Audubon, and I also hope that it would be open to the public most of the time because it's just such a fantastic asset that we could have. And I wanted to point out that there's one additional way that this could be really helpful to the community, and I hope Monterey Audubon would be interested in this as well. I participate in whale disentanglement, and there are occasions where we need to be able to keep track of a whale from land if it's traveling very close to the shoreline, and we're trying to keep eyes on it until a boat can get to it to actually do something. So there have been instances where this would have been really helpful, and I can see that there will probably be instances where a collaboration between Audubon and the Whale Disentanglement Network could be beneficial to our wildlife that way as well. So thank you very much, and I'm pleased to hear that it's sounding favorable for this to go forward. Thank you very much. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have Byron Chin with his hand raised again, although it might be someone else.
Hi, yes, this is Joanna Chin. I apologize. I was getting our daughter to bed. I just wanted to say that I also support this. Byron and I are both members of Monterey Audubon. We are the leaders of the Seaside Heerman's Gull Project, where we've installed a floating nesting island for Heerman's gulls in Seaside in Roberts Lake. I love the idea of the Sea Watch platform because not only is it going to perpetuate this very important surveillance tool for these times of rapid climate change to view all these indicator species, but it also makes pelagic bird watching accessible for those who can't necessarily afford or desire to go out on boats on these, day-long, rather expensive trips to see these species. This is one of the few locations where they can be seen from the shore. And that is really something to be treasured and something that should be encouraged and supported. And I stand by Monterey Audubon seeing projects through because they saw ours through, and we are really hoping for success with our project. And I would really like to see this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jeannie Anton, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Anton, and I am the chairperson of the BNRC. First, I want to welcome our new council members, and thank you for serving, and also thank you to Councilman Smith for continuing. I just wanted to remind you that the BNRC did give this project our endorsement with a 7-0 vote at our last meeting. Personally, I think this is a great project in an ideal location for the bird watchers because it's right on the migratory path, as Blake explained to you. It's kind of tucked up against a row of cypress trees, and so it's not in anybody's view shed. The area right now is overgrown with ice plant, and the Audubon Society has offered to restore it. So I see this whole thing as a win-win. And just to remind you that the Audubon Society will also cover all the expenses, including the insurance. So I hope you will support our local bird watchers by giving your endorsement to this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Anton, and thank you to the BNRC.
Mr. Mayor, I see no other hands raised at this time.
Right, let's bring discussion back to council.
I see one hand raised. Do you want to?
Okay, yeah,
Allow
let's
Ms.
hold
Priest?
off on council for a second.
Okay, thank you. Amanda Priest, you have the floor.
Welcome.
All right. Yeah, hi there. Sorry, I thought I had my hand raised, but I didn't click it right, I suppose. So yeah, thank you so much, Council, for reviewing this exciting opportunity in conjunction with our Monterey Audubon Society. I am on the board of directors for Monterey Audubon Society. And as you know, Point Pinos it's such an amazing spot. There's really nowhere else where you can see about 340 different bird species within 0.4 square miles and then see a whale breach. It's just a really special spot. And Blake already mentioned that this observation platform is really essential to continue our ongoing research into the migrating seabirds and their population declines and population trends. And I am excited for the new coastal trail section to go in, but yeah, we're going to have a place for our seabird biologists to shelter and do their work in that month of November. And I really liked Kate Spencer's idea and Mr. Gibson's idea. And I really hope that that's going to be a big part of this project, that we're going to have some good collaboration and it's going to be a multi-use space. So when it's not in use for seabird research, we can have Baynet and the PG Museum or special events with local photography groups using that space. So it is going to be a really special spot, I think. And additionally, I've worked the last 6 years doing native plant restoration at a Silomar State Beach down the road. So I'm really excited to get in there and spruce that space up, get rid of the ice plant, and create some more habitat for our local birds. So thank you so much. And yeah, so I hope you can vote to move the project forward. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you very much.
Jan Loomis. I thought I saw Jan Loomis's hand raised.
Welcome.
Miss Loomis, did you want to talk?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jan Loomis. I'm also on the Audubon subcommittee, the conservation subcommittee, but I'm also a volunteer naturalist for Baynet, which is part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. I don't want to repeat everything that has been said about the great merits of this project, but I will say that it has the potential of an incredible educational opportunity for when we're able to interact with the public in terms of educating people in terms of the migratory birds and wildlife that does come by Point Pinos. As we know, it's an incredible location. And those are the kind of tourists that we definitely want to encourage to come and enjoy our community. But I also want to say that this is a really positive project. And I think right now we all need something really positive. It's going to be a little while for this to get through, but it's also going to be a little while until we can interact with the public again. So I'm very excited, and I hope that you all will support this. And thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
I see no other hands raised, Mayor.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Thanks for the report. And I think this is an absolute great idea. The observatory would be wonderful to add to our community. I'm very much in support of it. I have a bunch of logistical questions, and I will just kind of fire them off, I suppose. It sounds like, listening to public comment, that people are excited about it in order to have access to it, to draw tourists and bird watchers and enthusiasts to come and use the platform. Yet we've also heard that it will, belong to the Audubon Society, that they will have access, it'll be locked, and It'll be theirs to decide who will use it. Is my understanding correct? That's one of my questions. I don't know if Mr. Blake.
Let me have a stab at saying that we are talking concept, and I encourage people to bring questions and concerns like the one you just posed. I think it's too early to say definitely how things were. This wasn't meant to be a session to actually, peg specifics. But I think if you just continue on with your concerns and your ideas, and Mr. Matheson's here, and our city attorney and city manager as well. So I don't think they'll be lost.
Okay, I think absolutely. In the spirit of a concept review, I would want that to be clearly understood of who is going to have access and how. Is it a code that gets given out from person to person, or is it a key? Will it be able to be used by other groups, or it will be open access? These types of things are rolling around in my mind. Also, I understand that the Beautification and Natural Resources Commission is very much behind the idea. I'm assuming we'll have it go to something like a ARB or Planning Commission. So I was just curious about the process with that. Is it in an ESHA area? Does it need CEQA review? Will it need a CDP? I think yes to almost all of those things. And so, I just want to throw that out, that those ideas are all, or those things are all required. If they are, they're also expensive, and they come with staff time and permit fees and things like that. So I just when I looked at it saying that the Autobahn is so generously willing to pay for it, I want to make sure they know all of the costs that are not necessarily in the building and the construction of it. I think that was it. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer about it. I just wanted to throw all those things out to make sure they're being thought about before we go forward and create a lease and get really excited. But there's a lot of admin to take care of to make it happen. But I do support it, and I think it's a great idea.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor.
Here's, we're having some bandwidth problems with Councilmember Emilio.
Or in the
I think the last time this happened, he's back. Councilmember Emilio.
I got zoomed out, so I had to zoom back in.
You still have the floor, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I got zoomed out and I was at a blank screen. So no, that was the only question. I think just what I mentioned, it was great for the city of Pacific Grove residents and the Audubon Society. I just had the question of the ADA, just to keep in mind of that concept. That was it.
All right. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I completely support the concept proposed. I think it represents some of the finest ideals that Pacific Grove has always been about. Councilmember Tomlinson brings up a good point about fees and just the cost involved. I would propose that we waive fees for this project. That's something we might want to consider later. I'll put that out on the table right now. But like her, I also had a couple concerns, just kind of due diligence questions, just to get them on the record. Not meant to be an obstacle or a criticism, just something I'm thinking of. And I know these are just concept drawings, but in the packet, and I'm looking at a rendering that shows access to the platform, the observatory, off of Ocean View through a break in the gate that fronts Ocean View. That, and it's open, doesn't have any kind of closure. I'm assuming that's not, the final implementation, but it certainly looks like anyone could drive in, or walk in or whatever. And my concern is that we don't want this observatory to become an attractive nuisance. And even though it's been proposed that the Audubon Society will cover insurance, the liability is there's no point in offering, I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to cover this if it does present itself as an attractive nuisance. So I believe we have a risk management officer for the city. I believe that's Ms. Hannah. So I'm sure she'll be involved with this along as it progresses through the permitting processes. So one question we might just answer this evening, or try to answer, is how will access be controlled, or how will this platform be accessed? Will the users have to drive into the local water project through the gates there, and then gain access through the local water project facilities out to it? And then this opening in the fencing along Ocean View Boulevard just doesn't even happen. So that's a question I have. And again, I would ask that we consider waiving fees if that's possible. Thank you.
I'm gonna recognize our city manager, Mr. Harvey. But just hearing the discussion, I think at some point in the near future, it would be good to have Mr. Harvey come back with an explanation of a path forward for this project in terms of permitting and some of the issues. I just identify the bodies that this project would have to come before, and some of the issues, and that we've already started identifying some, and who might be, or what body might be appropriate for resolving any issues that arise. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're happy to take that on and bring that back. Just to touch on a couple high-level questions posed by Councilmember Coletti, we would not recommend access to the local water project in order to access this particular facility. That would have to be addressed. The local water project will need to remain distinct and separate and secure. There's a lot of heavy machinery and operations going on there where we can't have members of the public commingling without some modifications made. So our recommendation would probably to keep those distinct, but we can identify potential steps. We would want this to be potentially included as part of the CIP project process, even though it is proposed to be funded by an outside entity. We think that's the logical place to include an item like this. And it's not so much the fees that are cumbersome in this process, it's the CEQA studies that will likely be required. So that's, but again, we can identify the potential process and the requirements and come back to council with that. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I definitely support this conceptual process and looking into, what was brought to the attention. I agree with Councilmember Tomlinson. Access is very important to me. public access, as well as, it would have to be ADA compatible. So something else to sort of add on the list of exploration would be maintenance fees over time, cost of maintenance. And Councilmember Coletti brought up a really, really good point with regards to, a attractive public nuisance and potential liability. So, but I think that this is a wonderful example of people working together, coming together, and I would definitely, support staff spending some time and coming back to council with some refined information. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. It never ceases to amaze me how many wonderful and amazing attributes our surrounding environment here in the Monterey Bay has. It's just astounding. I learned something new in the presentation today about the area, and it's pretty cool. And also our resident volunteers are just so involved and so competent and doing a great job. So I appreciate that very much. I had questions for staff, but I think at this level, from a concept perspective, makes a lot of sense to take advantage of this great resource that we have. And I think, there are going to be some hurdles. It's not going to be easy. And our likely endorsement tonight is not going to, take care of the CDP, the CEQA analysis, and the ADA issues that might arise. So there's going to have to be some work involved, and I think, the Audubon Society is going to have to be ready for that. I do think that the maintenance costs should be, borne by that group, and so I kind of can see that, but I'm kind of getting maybe too far away from a concept, and I also agree with Councilmember Coletti that we could be brought into a lawsuit if we have something like this on our property. It doesn't really matter who's paying the insurance. That's not going to stop us from being named. So those are just a couple of things, but I endorse this project. I think it takes advantage of a great resource that we have, and I will support it tonight for the purposes it's on the agenda for. Thank you.
Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention that I'm not a bird watcher, but all of this presentations actually want me to become a bird watcher. So I appreciate all that has been put together here. But I was also thinking in terms of being that this is a concept, I'm just going to throw it out there. One of the things that made me introspect is perhaps my kids may want to actually do something like this, become bird watchers. And while we have a concept going on here, I was wondering if probably a smaller platform could be built for kids, where schools over here in Pacific Grove can actually have the students actually go visit the platform, the site, and become avid bird watchers themselves. Anyway, tossing it out there along with the rest of the concepts. I also heard from the public that this particular platform or something of this nature is already there in Seaside. So maybe we can use some of the best practices from neighboring cities. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Yes, Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion on this.
Please.
Okay, thank you. The recommendation to approve the concept of the Point Pinos Bird Observatory and direct staff to prepare a land lease agreement and permits in cooperation with the Audubon Society.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the motion? I just want to just take a moment to recognize some of our callers. Mr. Charlie Gibson is on our recreation board, and so his idea about photography, maybe that will make its way onto the recreation board agenda for discussion. And the other one is Amanda Priest, and she is environmental scientist at Asilomar and is also on our Coastal Wildlife Protection Advisory Committee, which has been in abeyance since March, but we'll get started back again. So, Ms. Kendall, would you please give us a vote?
Yes, sir. Mayor Peak,
Yes.
Councilmember Emilio,
Yes.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our items on the regular session agenda. And we're going to adjourn this meeting, and then we're going to immediately call to order on our closed session and take public comment. So if anyone has public comment on the closed session, just please stay right where you are. And for those leaving us at this time, thank you very much for participating and have a pleasant evening. Night. Regular session is adjourned. And now call to order a special meeting. It's a closed session. Ms. Kendall, I'm not sure if we need to take a roll call at this point. Everyone is still here. Would you like to take a roll call anyhow?
I will, just as required. Mayor Peak,
Aye. Here.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye. Here.
Councilmember Coletti,
Here.
Councilmember McAdams. Where's she name? Councilmember Baduri,
Here.
Councilmember McAdams,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Here.
All are present via Zoom meeting, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have 4 items on the closed session agenda. They're all conference with labor negotiators with all city labor groups. The city negotiators are Mr. Harvey, Ms. Hannah, and Ms. Olivian. And that concludes the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
I see no for public comment, Mayor.
All right, seeing none, we'll now adjourn to closed session